Hi, I'm going to show you how to make a sourdough bread like this one. You can see it's got lovely rise on it, lots of air, and I'll go through it step by step. And if you do it exactly like I do it, then you'll know that every single time you'll get one of these. Right, so step one is to get the starter ready. So you just open your starter and you put in 75 grams of starter per loaf that you want to make into a big glass or container. Right, the aim is to get about 200 grams of starter in total that you then use for the loaf. But what we do, because the proportions are 1 to 1 to 1, being starter and water and flour, I do 75 because that brings it up to about 225, and with the water evaporating and stuff, you'll end up with about 200 of stuff to then use within your actual loaf dough afterwards. So at the same time that you're doing this, you want to also empty about 150 out of your actual jar, because we're going to feed that at the same time. So that's about, I usually do about 3 or 4 spoonfuls I take out of here. If you did 2 loaves, obviously you would use that in your glass, but we're only doing 1 loaf this time. So now you add the flour. As I said, it's the ratio is 1 to 1 to 1, so 75 grams of starter. So we put in 75 grams of flour, which is usually about 3 spoonfuls, heaped spoonfuls. Yeah, that's about right. And then you do the same with the water, so 75. So you go to 225 of warm water. So about there. The flour is, you can use white flour, just strong white flour, or for this bit you can actually use whole wheat flour as well. But this will give it a more elastic dough. Right, the same thing you will do to the jar itself. We're trying to feed the jar now, so we'll put about 100 grams of flour in here. And 100 grams, not milliliters, although with water it doesn't make a difference, but basically 100 grams of flour and 100 grams of water. And then you mix both of them. When you mix, make sure that it's properly mixed, and you shouldn't be able to see any lumps. So make sure you take all the flour off the side like this as well. You can see I've got an elastic band on there which tells me where the levels are once I've mixed it. And I'll be doing the same with the glass. So this one can go straight in the fridge if you're not going to do any more loaves this week. You can put it in the fridge and then take it out whenever you need it. This one, we mix. Okay. So right, so now that it's mixed, you can see where the level is. So you can put the elastic band where the level is, about there, and you use some cling film to cover it. And this will take up to about 5 hours even, and the idea is to let it grow at least twice as much, even a bit more would be nice. And that's it, so we just wait now. Now 20 to 7, so it was about 1:30 I think when we did this earlier, so about 5 to 6 hours later, you can see it's gone up beyond, it's grown more than twice in size. So you can now scoop the, so you've got a scale ready and just a bowl, and you scoop all of it in. It should be around 200. Some will stick to the glass, but you're looking for about 200. So make sure you scoop as much as you can out. Some does evaporate, so that's some of the water. We're at 194. I mean, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but yeah, 199. There you go, 200. I'll be 200 there. Yeah, 200. So that's 200. Then, so the proportions this time to make the dough are 1, 2, 3. And that's starter, water, and flour. I'm just going to wipe my hand. So what I do, I put the starter in first, then so I put the flour in next. The proportion is, I say, 1, 2, 3. So 1 is 200 for starter, so that means 600 of flour. You just put it in. So you can zero the scale, or you can just add it on. So because it was 200 for the starter, it goes up to 800 because that's 3 times the starter. And the proportions are 1, 2, 3. So 675. Right, 796. So that's 800, which is the 200 plus the 3 times the 200, which is 600. That's 800. And then you now add so it's 1, 2, 3. It's 1 starter, 2 water. So 200 times 2 is 400. So we put 400 grams of water. Actually, before we put the 400 grams, we put the salt in. Now salt, what I do, I've worked it out basically, it's mainly, what you do is the flour and the starter divided by 100 times 2. So because it's 800, so whatever the amount is, you divide by 100 and do times 2. So 800 divided by 100 is 8, times 2 is 16. So that's 16 grams of salt. So you put that in on top. There, and then you put the water, which is, say, ratio 1, 2, 3, so 200, 400, 600 worth of stuff. The water is 400, so we add that in as well. There you go. That's 1,216 on there, more or less. It's actually 1,220, but that's fine. That's it. Then you can move the scale, and I've got this tool here which helps you stir it. If not, just use your hands. And what you want to do, you don't want to turn it into a see what this one does, it just mixes the flour and the if you just lift the phone, please. It just mixes it all up. What you want to do is make sure that you get the starter and the water and the flour all mixed in, and just keep going. You don't want you don't necessarily want a completely smooth dough. You just want to mix it together for now. So I've been mixing this now for about 3-4 minutes, I guess. It's now taking this consistency. So you can see there should be no big lumps in there. There's still some flour at the bottom, but that's fine. You can try and mix it in. But, it's not completely smooth, but what you want to do is the first stage is to, you can see it's very sticky at the moment. The first stage is really just to let it sit there and let all the flour absorb the water, and all the starter and flour basically absorb the water for about at least an hour without touching, without folding it or anything, which we will do later. At the moment, if you try and fold it now, it'll probably just rip because it's not quite sort of glutinous enough. Okay, so then just make sure you round it, you put all the bits in the middle, so it's all one big dough. You don't have any stray bits that dry out, like this. And then you use the same bit of cling film that you had over the glass earlier. You can use that same bit as long as it hasn't ripped, and you literally just put it on top so that it doesn't lose its moisture. Just nice and tight. And that's it. And then you just wait for about an hour. Okay, so it's been about an hour. It's been resting for an hour. You now take this off, and this is the way you fold it. You grab the side of the dough like this, stretch, and fold it over. Same again here, stretch, fold it over, stretch, fold over. You keep doing it. I do it around, maybe in total about 10 times maybe, but we'll be doing it again later. So you do this every half an hour, at least 2 or 3 times. I've made bread before where I've not, there's hard bits like this, take them out. I've done it before where I've forgotten to fold as many times and I've only done one fold and it still comes out okay, but just do it because it just gets the dough more even, which means that when you make your bread, the middle of the bread won't be doughy or won't be airy on one side and not so airy on the other side of the bread. So once you've done this, you just leave it again, cover it first, and then you leave it again for another half an hour where you do the second fold, and you do that every half an hour, at least 3-4 times until at least I think about 10 o'clock. Okay, this is the fold number 2, so take off the cling film. You can see how it's a lot more elastic now. It's just sort of taking a different texture. So 2, 3, 4, 5, just a few more. That's it, this will do. Okay, and cover again. In half an hour we'll do the other fold. Probably the last one is getting to the point where this is feeling good enough. So probably one more fold and then we're ready to go on to the next stage. Right, so next we're going to rest the dough on here. So we're going to put some flour on here, but when I put the flour on, just so that in case I make a mess like that, I'm just going to also flour the bread basket because we'll need that for later. So what you want to make sure that you sort of do all the edges. Okay, so some flour on here, not too much. You don't want too much flour on here, just a tiny bit so it doesn't stick too much. And you can also wash your hands with the flour, and that'll make sure that the dough doesn't stick to your fingers too much, because it is a very sticky dough. Right, just it on there. Right, so now we're going to turn it. We're going to make it into a ball, and we're just going to leave it to rest for about 20 minutes before we finally fold it and put some seeds on it as well before we put it in the basket. So what we do, we turn it into a ball like this. And literally just cover it with the same cling film that we had before. Always check that it hasn't got any holes on it, that you haven't developed any holes, but just like this. That's it, and we'll just leave it there for half an hour. Right, so it's been a good, I think about an hour, more or less. So we want to make it, it can be half an hour, an hour. You don't want it to rise too much because you want to put it in the fridge to sort of rise a little bit overnight. What we're going to do first is shape it so we can then fold it. When you handle it, you've got to be quite careful not to squash it too much. But you'll see that what we do, turn it into a square first. So it's like a square shape. And then once you've got it into enough of a square shape, take one side, put it over this side like this. You take the other side and you fold it very gently like this. Almost make it into a, I don't know, just fold it like this into a sort of croissant type of thing, but not curved. Then what we want to do is stretch it and roll it. And as you do that, as I say, do not squash it too much. You'll see, sort of stretch it and start rolling it like this. I'm gently stretching it and rolling it. Stretch and roll, stretch and roll, and then just keep going, and I'm sort of with my thumb sort of also widening it a little bit like this. Right, so once you've done it like this, then you've got the two sides literally stretch over the edge like this. That's one. And the other side, same thing. So I don't want to put too much flour on it, otherwise it won't stick together when you push it together. Now you've got it like this. We get some sesame seeds. Take the flour off. And then you can have sesame seeds, or you can have other seeds, whatever you want really. I use sesame seeds. And then you just roll it like this, because that's the top. You roll it into the seeds, and then you can drop it into the proofing basket that we floured earlier, like this. Right, so once you've got it in the basket, we now need to fold it, to stitch it. And the way you do this, you get the end, put that on top like this, and then you get the sides, and we're literally stitching it like this. Eventually you'll see that we'll do it twice. We'll do it this side, and then we'll come back on ourselves and start from this side, and you can see the seeds, sort of the sides coming up a little bit. That's what you want to do. Turn it around to the end. Because it's picking up the flour, it's less sticky, so you really do have to use your fingers to stitch it. And what you're doing, you're just literally tightening the two edges, making them a little bit tighter. So as it rises overnight in the fridge, the skin will also tighten further. This doesn't have to be, I mean, this is the bottom, will be the bottom of the bread, so don't worry too much about it if it's not very neat. But and I just usually do both ends again, one end and two ends. That's it. That's more or less right. And then you just put cling film on top again, and I don't know where it's gone. An elastic band. Start from here. There. It's ready to go into the fridge now. That will go into the fridge until tomorrow morning, so overnight, and then we'll go on to the next stage. Good morning. So I've now put the oven on, so it's morning time. I've put the oven on maximum temperature, which is 250. You can push it further, 260, as high as you can on your oven. And we've got a Dutch oven here, which you will need because it keeps the moisture in, basically. Otherwise you'll have to, an alternative, if you haven't got this for now, you can always put the bread on a tray and then put another tray underneath with some boiling water for the steam. But then you tend to open the oven a bit too much and stuff, so it makes the heat go down, and it's not quite as good as having it in a Dutch oven. So in the Dutch oven, what I've done, I've created what is now a very old silver foil disc. I've kept the same one for ages and ages, even if it gets burnt, it doesn't matter. But what that does, that prevents it from burning underneath. And then I've got parchment paper, which is I will use later. But for now, we just want to warm up the oven, so we put this on one shelf. So you need to make sure that the shelves are the right height. So get rid of one of the shelves if you need to. Put this in one shelf like this, and put this one on a different shelf for now, just to warm up. And when they're hot enough and the oven's light has gone off, then we'll do the next stage. Right, so the oven's now ready. Before taking the Dutch oven out of the oven, we're going to score the bread. It's very important that you score it right. So the way we're going to do this, sometimes it sticks. You can add flour on the side in the evening, but it should be okay to just pry it apart like this, just slightly from the side before you try and turn it. That'll unstick it. Then you put the parchment paper or the baking parchment on it, and you just literally turn it around like this. And once it's landed on here, you can score it how you like. You'll see different scoring methods online, but what I've realised, I like it when it sort of opens up. And the only way to do that, I used to do it in the middle, and I've tried different ways of doing it, and I've realised that the way to do it is just there's like a ridge going all the way around it, and you need to score it just underneath the ridge from one side. Let's sort of say from this side about here, and then you need to be quite sure about it and just not hesitate, and just go all the way along and keep it underneath the ridge, so all the way along here to this edge. And then you might have to go the other way as well, just to make it slightly bit deeper. But essentially, this is a scoring tool, by the way, which has a replaceable blades at the top, and you can just put them on as you need them, very sharp. You can use probably a sharp knife and stuff, but knives obviously are a bit thicker usually, so that might mess up the cutting. So literally just do this. If it drags it along with it, then it's fine. There you go. And then to this side, and then you go the opposite way, just to make sure it's a tiny bit deeper. Okay, that's done. And at that point, you just take the Dutch oven out. And you carefully place this here like this. Put the lid on. And there it goes. Right. That will now stay in there for at least 35 minutes before you check it. And then when you do, we'll sort of lift the lid, and if it's risen enough, even if it's a bit paler than it should be, then that's when you take the lid off for it to brown. So we'll check it in about 35 minutes. So shall we say it's about half 10 now, so at about 10:35 we'll check it. It's now 10:35, so it's been 35 minutes since we put the bread in. So we're just going to check it. So the idea here is to see if it's risen, even if it's slight. We take the lid off and then leave it in there to brown a bit longer. So let's have a look. Take the lid off. It's risen beautifully. We just need to now leave it in there to brown a bit more around here in the middle. So the browner it is without burning it, the crustier, the harder the crust is, and the tastier it is as well. So we now check it again. It's now 22, so 5 minutes have gone by. Yeah, that's perfect. You can see it's got a tiny bit burnt on top, but it's now much more brown all the way around. So that's perfect. Switch the oven off, and what we do, I literally pull one of the shelves out a little bit to keep the door slightly ajar like this. And what that will do will make the crust even crispier. That's it. It's now lunchtime, and it's time to take the bread out of the oven. It's been sitting there for about, well, probably 2 hours or thereabouts. So the oven's cold now, so you can just take the Dutch oven out, and here it is. That's the bread. So you can see lots of air in it. Where we scored it, it's risen in exactly the right place, and it looks perfect. So what we do now, have it how you like, but nice thing to do is to have some olive oil. And some balsamic vinegar. And then you just cut it. When I cut it, I usually put it this way around. Just makes it much easier to cut this way around. So you can see, look at that, lots of air inside. There you go. Yes, it's lovely. And a couple more slices. Actually one more slice, and then we just got it in the middle here. This one, That's two. Done.